Good afternoon, all, and welcome to Unit 8 of Module 3 in our journey of Advanced Strategic Management. Okay. As if in this particular module, in Module 3, we do understand the basic process of internationalization, how these organizations do move from domestic territory to the international borders, and what are the things they need to take into consideration before going for internationalization process is what we have already discussed. Like we discussed in unit 6, the basic process of internationalization. In the previous class, we were talking of the different sort of strategies that these international organizations need to understand, the various risks, the problems associated with the international organizations, and how to overcome that. All of those issues we have discussed in our previous session. So continuing with that, in this particular session, we are going to deal with the different entry level strategies. Like once we understand that whenever these organizations, as a part of their growth, as a part of their expansion, would like to expand from domestic territory to the international borders, they cannot do it arbitrarily. As if we have understood in our previous class that there are phases of internationalization, multinationalization, transnationalization, and global organizations, considering the global efficiency and local responsiveness together, right? So in this process, if we consider the basic approach that these organizations need to undertake is that their growth and expansion strategies may it be because of the maturity of the product in the domestic market, may it be because of the lack of growth opportunities in the domestic market, or may it be because of any other reason where the organization feels that its business processes are going to be hampered, its business growth opportunities are going to be seized in the domestic organization. Organizations do take a decision of moving beyond the domestic territory itself. But whenever they do move as a part of their expansion processes itself, we have understood now, they will go in different phases. Like the first phase of getting into the international operations is the safest phase, is to go for a business of export, right? Where the products are manufactured at the domestic level only, and those products are to be exported to the international markets only, right? Then they need to go for tying up with some local organizations. So they are going for this joint ventures. They are going for some sort of strategic alliances with these local players to capture their market segment itself. Sometimes they go for licensing their manufacturing processes itself. So at the beginning phase itself, it was not required that we should start our own manufacturing unit by investing a hell lot of money. Rather, we can outsource that manufacturing process, right? So that can be there. At the end, the organization can think of making a huge investment to establish their own manufacturing setups over there. But whenever we are entering into new market, we need to make a deeper analysis of the different sort of resources that is required to carry out the business in the new international market itself. We need to make an evaluation of the raw material starters. We need to evaluate the labor cost over there. We need to think of the skilled manpower, availability of the skilled manpower. We are talking of the basic capital structure, the distribution channel, the marketing plan, everything has to be evaluated in a systematic way, right? And if we don't do that, then the basic objective of accomplishing this internationalization process may not be achieved. So, what sort of entry strategies that these organizations need to undertake is what that we are going to discuss. So here, It's not like the domestic market where I do have compatibility with all those external factors like the environmental factors, political factors, whatever it may be. I need to understand one thing, that the factors related to the environment or external factors are completely different from that of the domestic level of factor. Maybe whenever we talk of the basic differences, right, that may arise out of the culture of the organization. Cultural differences may be there, societal differences may be there. There are differences in terms of the economic policies. There are differences in terms of various rules, regulations, government policies, and there may be, the political system of the organization, which could be another one distinguishing factor. So when we move to international market, we need to take care of all of those aspects into consideration. Similarly, firms must evaluate the basic resources like the human resources of the host country itself, right? The skill level of the human resources, the potentials of the human resources, the experience of the human resources. As such, we call these as human assets. So, what sort of skill potentials that the human resources do have in the host country itself? That is what that has to be analyzed. Similarly, if I do think that I'm successful in my domestic organization or domestic country, I will also be successful in the international market without making much modifications in the existing product or service line. I may be in a wrong place. So, what is needed to be understood is what are the demands of the customers in the host country? What are the attributes of the products which are liked or disliked by the customers in the host country itself? So as for that, I need to make modifications in my existing processes. Otherwise, it will not be possible on my part to come out with my own strategies. Similarly, I need to have a control mechanism, right? So I simply cannot outsource it to the host country partners. I simply cannot delegate it to the host country itself, and I'll sit idle doing nothing, expecting that I'm going to earn profit out of that. That may not be like a good strategy. I need to have that control mechanism over the host country operations itself. Right? So these are the things that makes these organizations more careful about the processes, the structures, the plans, the strategies that they need to adopt before going for internationalization process. Right? So what sort of entry strategies that we need to adopt before that? Let us process, where we say that, as if in our previous class we discussed that internationalization process passes through 4 different phases, right? International, multinational, transnational, and global organizations. Now, based on that, the different sort of strategies which are adopted by the organizations for these 4 different sort of organizational phases, like we're talking of the ethnocentric approach, the polycentric approach, regiocentric approach, and geocentric approach. So, to what extent I am responding to the local requirements of the host country, and to what extent I am concerned for implication of the domestic country policies, plans, rules, regulations, or it's neither the domestic country nor the host country. I can come out with some sort of global strategies. That is what we need to understand. Right? So ethnocentric approach says this makes a complete replication of the strategies from the home country, the parent country, at the host country itself. Right? So Whenever I'm going for internationalization process, organizations do have some sort of assumptions that the factors which made them successful at the domestic level should also be the same factors that can make the organization successful at the international level. It's a very wrong notion. I'm telling you, this is a very wrong notion, right? But still, at the beginning of their journey to the international market itself, they can think of the countries, or maybe I'll say that nearby countries, where the cultural, political, environmental factors, even if not same, but are similar to the parent country itself. So if I do have ethnocentric approach, right? So there, what I can do, I I cannot rely on the host country nationals. Rather, as I'm implementing my existing plans, policies, rules, regulations, I'll depend on some of the people who are well conversant with my operations, who have well performed at the domestic level, to be deputed to the host country itself for carrying out the operations. They're called as expatriates. So I have to depend on the expatriates. Set of people deployed from domestic organizations, domestic level of organizations to international operations. Right? So they are the people who do have the responsibility to establish the business over there and run the business over there in due course of time. Right? But beyond that, whenever we are talking of this regional approach in a particular region, I assume, even if there are cultural differences, but still these cultural differences can be minimized to a large extent or have some sort of similarities among themselves. So if I had to talk of European economy, European region, so all the countries do have some sort of characteristics which are common with one another, even if not all, I'm telling you, right? Some are common. If I'm referring to Southeast Asian economy, so all those SAARC countries, they do have some or other kind of commonalities among themselves. So when I'm expanding myself from the national territory to the international borders itself, and in particularly, I'm talking of the regional countries itself, right? So there, there are differences in terms of their geographical locations, or they do have economic, social, cultural, political factors which may be, different in terms of their applications itself. Right? But in the polycentric approach, what I need to understand is there are complete differences. Even if the countries are located nearby, there are differences in terms of their markets, their strategies, their orientation, all of those things. So there, when I expand to those countries where I do have complete differences, like you do come out with cultural barriers, you do come out with language barriers, you do come out with the attitudinal differences among the customers, right? So there I need to depend on the people of the host country itself, right? So those organizations can be treated as the independent aspects of the businesses, right? So they can be independent units, right? So even if they do have a linkage with the corporate headquarters in terms of reporting, right? But still, the autonomy is given to those kind of organizations to have their own operations in the host country itself. So host country subsidiaries work as independent subsidiaries to take care of everything, every process in the host country itself. Right? But when I do have geocentric approach, Like this is the approach where we say that organizations truly follow the globalization efforts. Right? Globalization means not much variations in the strategies, rules, regulations, policies, plans, guidelines. Uniformity are to be there, right? So the basic concept is that entire world is treated as a single marketplace. So there is a potentiality to capture the entire world as we move from national territory to the international level. So there, I may not depend on the local, authorities, host country nationals. I may not be completely dependent on the parent country nationals, but anyone who does have his efficiency in managing global organizations could be the people of my choice. So, in true sense, I want global managers who can take care of the entire organization and its processes without confining themselves to the local constraints of host country or the parent country itself. Right? So these are the four such different approaches to deal with four phases of internationalization, like international, multinational, transnational, and global organization. These sort of things can be considered for that. Okay. Let us talk of these entry strategies of the organizations. Whenever we to talk of these entry strategies, actually we can discuss that from two different viewpoints. We can talk of organizations can make an entry to the host country through their export strategies. So export-based entry is one. Number two is the non-equity based entry, where we are going to discuss all of those in details, right? Different sort of entry strategies that the organizations can have as a part of their entry strategy, right? So let's to start with one of the basic strategy that the organizations do take is this export based strategies, right? This is initial. What is the reason? Reason is that you're making low investments, right? What it happens over there? Your involvement is low in the host country market. Your resource allocation strategies will also be low. So this is a very popular and beginner's method of international trade. What it happens over here? Here, the product is manufactured at the domestic level, right? The domestic country itself, and then those are transported to the international market itself. Transportation can take any of the ways, like you can talk of road transport, rail transport, or maybe the water transport. Maybe you can think of air transport methods. We have to evaluate the feasibility, cost effectiveness of these kind of methods of transporting our goods and services from domestic level to the international organizations itself. But we need to understand one thing, that here all of those products are manufactured by the country level organizations only, parent country level organizations are being transferred. Right? But when we talk of this export based entry, we do come out with two different strategies for that. Either we can go for direct exporting or we can go for indirect exporting. So, what is direct exporting? In direct exporting, I create my own channel of distribution in the host country. Right? So, I am targeting the consumers of the host country, and I would like to reach to the consumers of the host country directly. That's the basic strategy, that we need to talk of, right? So appointing distributors, appointing retailers, appointing sales executives would be my responsibility. And what I need to do is that after exporting those products to the host country itself, I need to depend on these distributors, wholesalers, retailers, or the sales executives for the sales and marketing of my products in the host country itself. Yeah. That is direct method. I can sell it in the host country directly with my own representatives. But many times this direct method is also having some sort of problems, risks. Yeah. Because I cannot completely rely on the people of the host country, neither I can rely on people of parent country. Because people of parent country, even if they are aware of the product, even if they are well aware of the organizational structure, plans, policies, rules, regulations, everything, but still they cannot accommodate themselves in the host country because of cultural changes, communication barriers, all of those reasons can be there. Right? So, what is the best strategy? You can go for indirect export. Right? So, indirect exporting can be done through two ways. Indirect means what? I export the products to some intermediaries, and then it's the role of the intermediary to carry out all those sales or marketing or sales activities in the host country itself. Right? So I do have an option. I can choose a particular intermediary from the host country itself. Do have a tie-up with it, right? So whenever I'm talking of this intermediary from the host country, there you'll see that I'm going to export it to the intermediary, and the entire distribution channel will be taken care of by the intermediary of the host country, right? But I can also think of exploring the possibilities with the intermediaries of the home country also, right? And when I do come out with some sort of vendors who do have expertise in sales and marketing, right? Particularly in international market, right? So I can take the advantage of those kind of organizations. So in that case, it's not my lookout. I simply, manufacture, give it to that internal, you know, this exporter. These internal exporters can, either have negotiations or partnerships with the host country, you know, buyers, or they do have their own expertise to, come out with their own marketing distribution. Okay? So with this, if I do say what are the advantages and disadvantages of exporting the business itself, like as we say, advantages can be like low risk, low investment, low allocation of resources, right? Because everything is controlled at the domestic level. Only I think of the you know sales support from the host country, right? Host country government or host country partners itself. That is that increases, of course, the sales because I'm expanding from domestic level to the international organization, and that also reduce the requirement of inventories because here you are going for economies of scale, right? So when you are going for massive production, because you are going to cater the needs of the local no home country, at the same time you are going to have the fulfill the needs of the host country itself, right? So volume production should be there, right? And that is why you are having a lower requirement of all those inventories itself. We do talk of this advantage in terms of like not being involved in the day-to-day operations, because involving in the process of the organization will require to interact with the different stakeholders of the host country government, right? So I'm doing nothing, but I'm only importing my products. So that doesn't require much of interventions of the people. Really? Beyond that, we say that this is one of the best ways we can ever find to promote our brand name internationally. Right? Beyond that, one of the advantages is that here, as your capital investment is very low, so you can have easy access to exit from the host country market. Say in host case, your product quickly got to its maturity phase, right? Sometimes some of your products may not be successful at the domestic level, right? Some of the product has lost its relevance at the domestic level, right? So what I can do is that I can think of the features of those kind of products and I can relaunch them in the host country market itself. So anything that is, you know, that is not valued by the national boundaries can be valued by the international customers. That is what. Okay. Beyond that, when we do say the basic demerits, of course, manufacturing cost may be reduced, but the unit price may be hiked because you're talking of the various commissions, right? In the export business, you're talking of the transportation taxes, the various sort of duties, levies imposed on the imported products itself. So here the cost of production may be low, but because of this additional cost, per unit cost may be high. Right? Again, that depends on the kind of geographic locations where this organization is operating, right? So, what are the basic infrastructural facilities being available to the organization? Any? So, all of those things can be considered for that. Second disadvantage is that you may not be able to penetrate the market in a rapid way unless and until your product and packages are changed, right? Like most of the time, you talk of the customers' preferences, tastes, and according to that, you need to package and promote your product. Right? So here, when you lack in terms of the market equipments of the host country itself, there you don't have any other option lying before you than to go for a kind of you know uh, alliance with the local farmers. So that comes lateral, right? So most of the time here we do understand one thing, that distance is also a matter to be considered, right? Like what is happening in the host country, I need to understand that on day-to-day basis, right? What is the level of market share, the contacts, right? I cannot rely completely on my partner over there. No? So what I need to do, that I need to establish contract with the local authorities. But right, uh, these export methods may not help the organizations in doing that. We are talking of this that there is always a threat of copywriting, patents, right? So some or other, you will see that these local firms may have copyrights, but sometimes they copy the product features, right? And they do launch their own product. Hmm? That is why no, it's riskier. And we do say that there may be restrictions against a particular category of product by the host government itself, right? So we need to take into consideration all of these aspects before we move to the internationalization process itself. But how do we say that the disadvantage can be overcome? Disadvantages of this exporting part can only be overcome when I establish my own manufacturing to like the sales capabilities in the host country itself. Okay? So there only I can have a greater control over the business. Right? Moving ahead, to have non-equity based entries, which says first one is the licensing. Right? Licensing is you know the organization which gives license to others, they are licensors. The organizations which are in touch with those licenses, they are licensing. Those who take licensing, those who give licensing, right? So in a licensed agreement, normally these host country organizations, they do get some sort of intangible rights. I provide license to manufacture the products, right? So here the manufacturer from the host country would like to go for an agreement, and in those kind of agreements, they usually focus on the different processes, whether the host country can modify those processes or not. Patents can be taken by the host country organization. The copyrights of the programs can be taken into consideration. The trademarks, expertise, all of those things are shared between the parent country organization with the host country itself. Right? So these are the factors. Right? We are outsourcing the basic process part, then the program part, trademarks, copyrights, patents, processes, all of those things are to be considered for that. Right? So what are the advantages? Here you can see that in licensing process, I'm just outsourcing my technology, right, or my process, right? But I'm directly not being involved in the process. So this licensing is a process where I can get additional benefit, right, in line with the existing operations at the domestic level, right? So this is a source of additional profit for me, right? And these additional profits can be generated through the single processes from the host country. So I'm not outsourcing everything. I'm not venturing into other host countries through all of my policies, plans, rules, regulations. No, right? So single process. So sometimes, like a particular process which is outsourced, like is based on the notion that the process has lost its relevance at the domestic market. Eh? So, like the particular product may get an extended life, life cycle, right, which has already matured and are in the field of declining itself, losing its relevance, right? That is what we need to understand. But beyond that, this licensing may got certain disadvantages also. Like this is a process where we may limit our future profit opportunities. Right? So, like what you need to understand is that if I could have manufactured that particular thing in the host country by myself, I would have got the ownership, I would have taken the risk as well as in the profit. But now what it happens? So when I do give a license to the others, so the profit part is shared, right? So now it's the host country organization will look into everything. Right? That is what. So in due course of time, the parent country organizations may lose control, quality in the product line. Okay, control and quality in the product line because they don't have a direct access. Right? They only outsource their, you know, processes, technology, or patents. Okay? Good. Agreement between the licensor and the licensee should be clear in terms of like mode of payment, mode of delivery of goods, right? Or what sort of support these parent organizations are going to provide to this, you know, local aspects itself. All of those things. So clear understanding, clear, you know, agreement will lead to the success of this licensing process. Okay? Contrary to that, we do have one more process. It's franchising. Right now, this licensing process and franchising process both are quite similar to one another, right? But franchising is a process which do involve additional things. Like in licensing, we provide the name, trademark, process, right? But here in franchising, now it is also expected that the franchisee gets the assistance in terms of its operations and raw materials, supply of raw materials. That means what? If I'm franchising my business in a host country, I'll give the name, the trademarks, logos, everything. Beyond that, the basic operations and supply of raw materials, right? Those things can be provided to the host country also. Right? Complete supply. Host country's role is only to manufacture or process the entire thing, right? Okay. So franchising also increases this revenue, expansion of brand name, brand identification, name identification, market, you know, reach. All of those things can be the benefits of this franchising model, right? And there is an assumption that quality and operating standards should be improved, right? So these are the basic aspects of, you know, franchising concept. Franchising and licensing are similar to one another, right? Now we need to understand one thing that here that at the beginning organizations do go for exporting their products which are manufactured at the domestic level and they can export that, right? Then they make certain investments to, you know, establish themselves at the host country, right? Like creating a distribution channel, right? creating a particular channel through which we can manage the human resources of the organization. All of those things. Okay? So when they are successful in capturing the market of the host country, then they think of investing in establishing their own operations, right? So operations can be you know done by their own ways, establishing their own manufacturing plants, establishing their own distribution channels over there, establishing their own offices, everything, right? So here I don't want to go for a joint venture, right? A wholly owned organization, not partially, right? So whenever we to talk of this phase of the organization, maybe in the initial days, organizations do outsource their manufacturing processes by the mode of a contract with a local firm. एक लोकल फार्म के साथ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करके ये लोग एंट्री कर लेते हैं, राइट? सो दिस एमएनसीज can subcontract the production instead of establishing their own product locations, manufacturing processes. One part. MNCs can also take over for the full production, right? So in contract with the local plant itself, and sometimes they keep the production with them, and they do go for a partial manufacturing service assembly work. Okay? So assembling all those products, giving a touch to the final product is what that is being expected in this contract manufacturing strategy. Advantages, what are the basic advantages over here? Like expanding the supply of this production process, because I am in a growth phase, no? So that is why I need to produce more and more. So does the existing form of the organization, does the existing manufacturing unit of the organization is well capable to reach the requirements of the customers, right? So if not, it's also this production process to the host country, and together we can have vast production units, right, to meet the customer requirements, etc. So this is a strategy, as if you to remember in module 2 we discussed that vertical integration, horizontal integration, right? So this is a vertical integration strategy. I'm not expanding in terms of the product line, but the existing product I want to establish a new production unit. That's all. Disadvantages, let me forward this degree of control over the production and supply timetable itself, because I have completely outsourced it to the host country organization itself. So that is the reason why I have to be dependent on them. So may not yield the result as I desire. Then we do come out with management contracts. Management contract. Sometimes when you do see that this host country government either do face some sort of problems, or this host country government feels the operational inefficiencies of some of the organizations. Right? So in that case, they do go for a management contract, where these farms, they do agree to rent their expertise, their know-hows, technical know-hows, to the government, right, for the like in the form of personnel who enter into that foreign environment itself. Now, what it says now, like it is mentioned over there, there is a turnkey operation. Turnkey operation, what it says, you do have a complete package, right? A complete range of solutions, right? And when this management resources are outsourced, that means what? Here, the host country demands the parent organization to send some of their experts to overcome all those problems faced by the MNC itself, right? Here you do see they do like starting from startup to any kind of services, constructions, operations of the entire plant, everything will be taken care of by the managerial people on deputation to the host country itself, right? But may lead to some demerits also, like what would be the duration of that project itself? What will be the duration by which all these problems can be resolved, right? If it's short-term duration, it's okay. If it is long-term, then this long payout schedules will promote to different sort of career growth, right? And the organization may be in trouble on a long run. That is what we need to understand. Similarly, another one strategy is when you don't want to get yourself involved, right, through allocating these resources or through this allocation of your time, energy, right? Particularly, we're talking about three things, right? So, capital, personnel, and assets. When you don't get don't want to get yourself involved directly in terms of providing these sort of things, so there it is always a better idea to go for investment as against the manufacturing processes itself, right? So here, the kind of agreement based on this investment made by the people, made by the organizations itself, right? So either you are going for a partial owned subsidiary or a wholly owned subsidiary, right? And then you keep on like engaging in different sort of activities for that. The objective is that you gain access to a larger market, you take the advantage of the cost differential, right? Most of the time we do say that, we need to move to those kind of host country where the cost of production can be cheaper. And how can this cost of production be cheaper? Where I do have like cheaper resources available. Resources at a cheaper price should be available in that. Okay? So those kind of things we need to take into consideration. Right? Beyond that, we need to talk from the strategic viewpoints of the competitors over there, right? So considering all of those things, I can make my mind either to invest or not in the international markets, right? But physical involvement is not there. We're talking of strategic alliances or these joint ventures itself. Strategic alliances it says as two or more firms join together to establish some new business operations, right? So two organizations they join hands together to define a new business, right? So the policies, plans, rules, regulations can be completely different from the existing ones, right? So here You can say, whenever we are talking of these strategic alliances or joint ventures, let's say, it can be between two parties. So MNCs to the MNCs of the host country, MNCs with the government of the host country, or right. In case there are more than two parties in the process of negotiation itself, right? We don't call that as joint ventures, we call them as consortium, right? Consortium operations. So these are other three like strategies that you have to come out with. One is wholly owned subsidiaries itself. So in this particular strategy, organization don't depend on the host country people itself. They do that with their own involvement, right? So what are the strategies? They may go for acquiring an ongoing operation, right? So based on two dimensions, we call that as greenfield strategy and brownfield strategy. Right? So greenfield strategy is to create a new organization out of scratch. Nothing was there. So completely new. Right? But whenever we talk of this brownfield strategy, right? So organizations to search for some newly established organizations in the host country, and they would like to buy them directly, right? Sometimes you are also going for this globalized operations. Globalized operations, what it says? But of course, we understand that the customers' attributes for those products and services can vary in terms of their you know socio-cultural environment. But it can also be observed that there are certain products, right, which are classified as standardized products by the customers. Now, these sort of products, they do not vary significantly as we do move from culture to others. Right? So there is a demand for a standardized product which can breach the requirements of the customers around the globe itself, right? And towards the end, we are talking about this portfolio related investments itself, right? So in that portfolio related investment, what is required is that we can invest in form of the securities, notes, bonds, commercial papers, etc. Right? We do not need to have our physical presence over there, but we can invest and be a partner to them. Right? So these are some of the like entry level strategies for the organizations to have their operations at international level. But sometimes, as we already discussed it in our previous classes, right? A country's political stability is what that is going to make this international assignments success or failure itself, right? So this government, before formulating any sort of policies, would like to have some sort of control mechanism. Like you can think of the way this goods are transported to the host country itself, or being exchanged among the host country itself, right? And sometimes we need to think of the flow, capital flow. We are talking of the uh, knowledge know-hows. You cannot sift the people, technical people. That is what we need to understand, right? And for that only, the government at times, imposes entry barriers because of this economic situations like many factors like your currency rate, the way you come out with your revenue model, or the way you come out with your money consideration, right? Those factors are to be taken. Interest of the people, like mostly the people in the uh, host country or in the parent country nowadays, like people are more concerned for their health, they're concerned for their safety standards, or they're concerned for the employment issues, right? So because of this, government may also restrict the uh, business. Sometimes we do talk of certain geographical and demographical areas which are to be developed. Maybe considering the requirement of the economic development of a particular geographical location, which may be based on a remote area, maybe based on a very rural area, right? But organizations can establish themselves in those kind of places also, right? We do talk of these approaches which imposes restrictions of carrying out the business at international level only. But what is the motive? Motive is to protect the local entrepreneurs, protect the local manufacturers, right? Sometimes when these large MNCs they enter into this host market itself, we discuss that these large organizations do have economic benefits because of larger or mass scale production, right? So whenever we do have this larger mass scale production that reduces the cost, gives a threat on local entrepreneurs, right? How to protect them? Like earlier days, we used to have FERA, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, and RBI was the sole controller of business. So to protect the local entrepreneurs, government used to impose many kind of taxes, duties, levies to the exported products, so that when those imported products reaches the market, price will be at par with the local products. But this protectionism approach is no more valid as if India has adopted Foreign Exchange Management Act. There was a transformation, all those power given to RBI was withdrawn and all those things, right? So here, everything is dependent on the kind of protectional policy that this government does have. So whether I'm going to protect the local industries because I would like to generate employment opportunities, which will ultimately go for a development of my economy, or I can protect this infant industries, like startups, right, who are yet to develop themselves. So they cannot compete with the big or large players in the market. So anyhow, I need to facilitate them with some sort of benefits, schemes, incentives, so that they can compete with other large players, right? Protecting specific industry as a part of the government's industrial policy itself, right? Like we do talk of, like India is a country which is a massive exporter of spices. Now, can we allow other foreign countries to start their business of spices in India? Cannot be, right? So that is how, you know, always it has been an argument, but protectionism is more based on emotions than on economic conditions, right? Just to end up, so these are the ways by which government intervenes, right? The government intervenes some sort of tariffs, some sort of non-tariff barriers, and some quotas itself, right? Imported products are imposed some sort of taxes, duties, levies, non-tariff barriers like, action against certain foreign suppliers in bidding process or country like entry process in that country, all of those things, right? So let us end up over here, and so we have come to the end of module 3, where we have understood how this, internationalization process should be taken into consideration. And next session we'll move to module 4 with all particular factors that can affect the international quotient. So thank you very much. Have a great day.